Zach, tell us a little bit about your backstory and your journey of just how you chased, pursued, striving and accomplishments, and at what point did that fig leaf no longer work for you?
Yeah. Well, so I'm an only child. Grew up on a farm in North Georgia, which is where I live now. And I growing up here, my mom and my dad were both very supportive of everything that I chose to do, wanted to do. Got involved in scouting and became an Eagle Scout at an early age, one of the youngest ever. I received my Eagle at 12. I was, salutatorian of my class in high school. I ended up in '95, ended up being the Eagle Scout of the Nation. So the list just continues, and I'm going to stop there because it just the things just continue. But it was like the performance and achievement thing was just so much a part of who I was. And um I don't know really why or how it got there. Looking back, I can just see that, my parents were just trying to be encouraging and loving. Um, but when you as I've done some therapy and walked through some of this stuff pretty deeply, it's it's really when you start looking at what is it that and how do you receive love and connection. And in my head, it was I receive love and connection when I'm performing or when I'm achieving, and when I'm not, I don't. And so, that led to a pattern of addiction that um, unraveled me in the last decade. I would as I share this story and as I share my story of addiction, a lot of people look at me and say, "Oh, well, at least your addiction isn't something that you're ashamed of, and or at least your addiction isn't something that is shameful." I'm like, well, it depends on how you look at it, right? But unfortunately, the world celebrates my addiction. It encourages my addiction. Nobody says, you know, hey, Jeff, you're doing great. You need to drink more alcohol, or Jeff, you're amazing. You need to look at a lot more pornography, you know? Like nobody says that. But with my addiction, everybody says, "Oh, Zach, you're amazing. Let me pat you on the back. Let me encourage you to do more." And it literally um it ended up putting me in the hospital more than once. And I guess I can share that story here in just a moment. But yeah, that was my past. That was my history. Ended up, like you said, I went off to the United States Military Academy at West Point. Graduated in the top of my class. And it was just like everything that I did was to prove to the world that I was bigger, badder, better than everybody else. And so um, that's a pretty detrimental place to approach life.
So, what was the tipping point for you, Zach, where things kind of finally came to a head, and you realized that you had to face this part of who you are?
Yeah, so I'm a Chick-fil-A operator. Became a Chick-fil-A operator back in 2008, and of course, I took my performance and achievement addiction to that, and was doing pretty well as an operator. And I somewhere along the way decided that it would be cool to get my MBA, and reached out to, long story, but I had a connection with a university, reached out to the president of the university, which had become a friend of mine, and and asked about the possibility of pursuing a master's in business administration there. Um, got enrolled. The VA, being an Army veteran, the VA was paying for it, so it wasn't even a cost for me. It was just an opportunity to get a credential and put, a few letters behind my name or something. And um, I got into that program and was doing really well. In fact, one of my professors told me that he had been teaching for over 20 years and that I was the best student that he had ever had in over 20 years in terms of getting my work done, the quality of my work, and getting my work done on time. And I couldn't just make C's and pass classes. Like I had to be the best. I had to make perfect grades. I had, like it just was part of my my DNA at the time. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at my kitchen table. This was around, Thanksgiving of 2018. And my now 15-year-old daughter came to me and said, this is 4 years ago. Maybe it was 2017. Either way, 4 or 5 years ago. And my daughter comes to me and says, "Daddy, you're no fun anymore." And I was like, "Wow, okay. What do you mean by that?" And she's like, "Well, you're always working on this schoolwork, and we never have time for anything else. You're not playful anymore. You don't, So she was 10 at the time, 10 or 11, and it hit me like a freight train. And I remember just looking at my computer. I was working on an assignment, and I just said, "Yeah, you hear stories of addictions where people just quit cold turkey, right? Like they just miraculously quit." And this was that moment for me. It was just like I'm looking at my computer screen and I'm working on an assignment. I'm just like looking back and forth between my screen and my daughter, and I just said, "You know what? I'm done. I quit." Closed my laptop, and next day emailed my professor and said, I quit. And they're like, all you have to do is turn in this one last assignment, and class is over and you're going to get an A plus. And I'm like, no, I need an F. Like, I need you to fail me. This was like the final project, this thing. And I'm like, I need you to fail me. Like, I need this. I can't do this anymore. Um, I ended up sending a long email to my to my friend, the president of the college, and explain to him what I was doing and why I was doing it. Um, and so that began a series of just unraveling. I began to just pull the plug on so many different things and just say, "Oh, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to cancel that." And so I began to do that. And um 2019, this is pre-COVID, the world's rocking, and I'm pulling the plug on everything. And it was right around my birthday. So this was 3 years ago. Right around my birthday, 2019, and I was beginning to have symptoms of what I felt like were a heart attack. My chest was hurting. I was having difficulty breathing. I didn't know what was going on, but I was scared. And so go to the hospital. They do a stress test. They're like, "You're fine. Go home and just take it easy, and let us know if you have any more problems." So about 2 weeks later, same thing. I'm like, okay, I know I'm dying. Like I'm having a heart attack. And so I go back in and I convince the doctors that they're convinced enough that they must have missed something on the stress test. And so they actually do a heart cath. Literally, stick a camera in my arm all the way to my heart, and I was awake for the procedure, and I'm literally laying on a bed, looking at my heart on this big screen TV, and the doctor's like, "There is nothing wrong with you. It's stress. It's something else." And I remember after the procedure, I was talking with the doctor, and I was just like, it can't be stress, because I've never been in a place where I've eliminated so much in my life. Um, I've deleted so many things off my calendar. I've gotten rid of so many obligations. I'm not pursuing, all these titles and recognition, and I'm not. I'm stepping back from my performance-driven self and all of that, and here I am. I don't know what it is. And so, but it can't be stress. It can't be anxiety, because, I'm making money at work. Like things were going well. I get home, I'm debriefing with one of my friends who happens to be a therapist, and walks in this Wild at Heart message as well. And his name is Rob Chidester. He's out in Utah, and has become a good friend. But Rob asked me the question, like, well, what do you think it is? I said, I don't know, man. I said, but honestly, I feel like that I've never in my life disappointed more people than I have this year in 2019. And it was in that moment I realized, that's it. That's it. That's where my stress and anxiety is coming from. It's this feeling of disappointment and letting people down and not coming through for people, and performance and achievement. It wasn't it's kind of the opposite of what you would think. It wasn't the actual, I'm going 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour trying to accomplish things that put me in the hospital. It was the lack thereof, because my body and my DNA and who I had become was so used to doing those things and accomplishing those things and being that person, that when I started saying no to people and performance and achievement, it put me in this tailspin of anxiety, and caused me to have heart attack symptoms. And so, yeah, that's the story. Here I am, 3 years on the other side of that. And I'm not going to say that I'm fully recovered. Once an addict, always an addict, right? Um, and so, there are moments of relapse. There are moments of time where I find myself, asking why am I doing this? Is this for prestige? Is this for title? Is this for recognition? Is what is this for? Um, I I just recently went through a major thing in my life, and this is the first time I've ever shared this in public. But uh, how much time do we have?
As long as you want, Zach. This is good stuff, man.
Yeah. Well,
The flow, take as long as you need.
uh, so as I mentioned, I'm a Chick-fil-A franchisee, and kind of the pinnacle of being a Chick-fil-A operator, Chick-fil-A franchisee is to be multi-unit. And I relocated back in 2017 from a high volume unit in Marietta, Georgia, to a lower volume unit in my home community, Polk County. Opened up in Rockmart, Georgia. Rockmart is about 15 minutes from my house, which I live in Cedartown. And at the time, Chick-fil-A wasn't looking at Cedartown. Um, Rockmart was the only location that they were looking at in Polk County. And so, even though I'm from Cedartown, we do a lot of life in Rockmart, and there's a lot of community overlap between Cedartown and Rockmart. And um, I became an operator there in Rockmart September of 2017, and everything's going great, wonderful. Sales are growing. Besides a worldwide pandemic, which shook everybody, and had some significant challenges, and we're dealing with profitability issues now due to rising fuel costs and labor costs and all that stuff. The opportunity presented itself to apply for a multi-unit situation because Chick-fil-A is now looking at Cedartown. And I got wind of it kind of before they put it out to the public. My ops lead, gave me a heads up, said, "Hey, Zach, I think, you should go for this." I said, "Well, yeah, of course. Like that's what I'm going to do." And so we began the process of positioning ourselves and preparing for multi-unit to the tune of promoting people on my leadership team and developing and growing my leadership team to be prepared to kind of split and run multi-unit. Fast forward to where we are today. I literally I want to read you something that I sent to kind of the decision makers that were a part of this thing. And here's the bottom line. I personally know the president of Chick-fil-A. He's a good friend of mine, and I had a personal conversation with him back when this thing first came about. And his thing was, "Zach," he said, I we all know that you're a high performance operator. You've got a great reputation, but here's the bottom line. This situation is really too far. Now, this may sound crazy to people out there listening, but most multi-unit situations are less than 10 miles apart. This situation is 13 and a half, 14 miles. And so we're talking about 3.5, 4 miles difference. And, but it really is that big of a deal. for Chick-fil-A. And so back on May 9th, my ops lead and area director came out to the restaurant and sat down with me face to face and said, Zach, we just don't see this as a multi-unit situation. And honestly, I was devastated. I was I didn't know what to do with that, because it was like, well, this is, I have 7 children. This is my home community. Like, what is this should have given me a clue pretty early on. But my one of my biggest concerns was, what is the community going to think? What are the people in Cedartown going to think? Like, people already give me a hard enough time. Like, they don't understand the process, and they're like, why did you open in Rockmart first? Why didn't you open in Cedartown? I'm just like, well, that wasn't really my choice. Like, Chick-fil-A was looking at Rockmart first, and I would rather be there than stay in Marietta, like, and I love Rockmart. My kids take dance in Rockmart. We used to go to church in Rockmart. Like it's a great town. And in fact, my wife's family was from there for the most part. Her grandfather settled on the Rockmart side of Polk County in like 1849. Like, our family it is also our home, and so people didn't really understand that. They didn't understand why, I opened in Rockmart first. And I'm sitting here thinking, now they're definitely not going to understand, like, why, um, why, um, I'm not going to open in Cedartown, or why I'm not going to be multi-unit. And so, let me read you this. So they come out to my restaurant, and they sit down with me, and this is not, it's not normal. That, I mean, normally it's like a phone call or something, but the gravity of this situation, I feel like, Chick-fil-A really honored me in coming out and sitting down with me face to face. And I just said, thank you for making the drive out today. I do feel honored by your commitment to our relationship. And I think you're going to play this song later, but I was like, I listened to this song this morning before our meeting, and will continue to listen until I receive some peace and clarity. And it's this nothing to hold on to. And so, that is, actually, you're going to play that as the intro. So that was, that's that. So the song that you listened to prior to our
No,
conversation.
we'll put it on the tail end. We
Okay.
always do the song after the guy shares, so
Okay.
it'll be
Gotcha.
on the
So,
tail end.
yeah, so that's my song. Nothing to hold on to. But then, a few days later, I said, Lauren and Shelby, I wanted to check in with both of you this morning and let you know how I'm doing. After much prayer, I'm feeling better. I picked up the book, Ego is the Enemy. Even though it's a Stoic text, our president, Tim Tassopoulos, recommended it a few years ago. I started reading it again for the second time, as I believe that's the root cause of my anguish. Also, God gave me a verse this morning. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I said, it still very much feels like a loss of hopes and dreams, but I keep reminding myself that that my trust is in God, not Chick-fil-A. I wrote 2 things on my board in my office in January: trust God no matter the outcome, and slow and steady wins the race. Every year at the beginning of the year, God gives me words that help me through the year. And He knew that I would need these words now. So I had two requests. So requires a little bit of explanation. So um, when Chick-fil-A activates a new unit and makes it eligible for application, they activate it one of two ways. They activate it multi-unit first, or they activate it standard activation. Years ago, what they would do was, depending on the location and how they would, they wouldn't even activate it multi-unit first. But they would just do it standard activation if it was too far apart. Well, this is now they've decided to honor the operator. They're going to activate all new units multi-unit first. And so I said, if I have no chance of being selected as a multi-unit operator of Cedartown Rock Mart, please do not activate it multi-unit first. It just feels like a cruel joke. And so fast forward, they ended up activating it multi-unit first because they said they had no other choice, because that's now their policy. So I prayerfully decided that I needed to apply, or I needed to express interest. And the reason being is because I needed to, not that I thought I was going to get it. In fact, I felt like I was setting myself up for a pretty major disappointment. But I needed to apply because I needed them to tell me no. I needed that as part of is part of my journey. Like, I needed to face that head on, the potential of this major life achievement, performance objective. I needed a no, because people don't tell Zach Thomas no. And so just a few days ago, I got the official, like, we got your expression of interest, and the answer is no. And so I responded just this week. So this is real time. I responded this week saying that I'm good. Please know that I found peace in my heart, and mostly in my head, because some of it just doesn't make sense in my head. So I said, and mostly in my head. I'm ready to move on. God has used this to help me further define my identity apart from Chick-fil-A, and for that, I'm grateful.
So Zach, let me ask you a question. As you've gone through this journey and this dismantling and unraveling, and now you've gone through real life experiences where things didn't work out. And so what are some practical ways that God is filling those holes that still need to be filled, in terms of your identity, in terms of your worth, and detaching your worth from successes and performance? What are some practical ways to kind of, as we kind of wrap this up today, kind of leave our audience of what are some ways that you've done that?
Well, I'm still very much, learning that and figuring that out. But I do know that, some of our basic psychological human needs are love, and connection, and significance, and if I'm not going to meet my need of significance through performance and achievement, then, in order to receive love and connection, like, what am I going to do? And so really, where my heart has shifted, and my focus has shifted, is toward my children. And if I can, I don't know what uh, success looks like in that realm. I don't know if that's, my kids not coming to me and saying, "Dad, you're no fun anymore," or if that's, my kids all. I don't know what the scorecard is. I don't, other than just feeling love and connection with my children. And so really, that is where I've shifted my focus, and without being you know, uh, overbearing and, trying to make them into performance and achievement addicts as well. That's the last thing I want. Um, I just want to have love and connection with my children, and that my significance would be drawn from the fact that one day they'll look back and say, you know, my dad was at every dance recital, and my dad was at you know every jiu-jitsu tournament, and my dad was there um, when I needed him, um, through prayer and support. And so, you know, that that's what I'm pursuing now. Um, and of course, you know, in God's kingdom, it's a slippery slope when you look at religion and performance and achievement inside the religious structure of things. We can take all this to our role in the church or something, and uh, and I think I'll tell you a quick story. I had a team member one time come to me, and he said that his church had approached him about being a deacon, and he said, Zach, do you think I should do it? And I said, well, his name was Tony, and I said, Tony, here's the deal. I said, if you can get up every morning and look yourself in the mirror and say, the reason I'm doing this is because I love God and He loves me, and there's no other reason, then do it. But if you're doing it because you get a feeling like I'm important, or um, I'm obligated, or it's some sort of, um, duty and obligation, performance and achievement thing, then don't don't do it. And so, um, I think if we use that as a filter, for pretty much everything that we do, it's like, is it pure, undefiled love, or what's the motive? What's behind it? And we start looking at the things that we do and asking that question and saying, why am I doing this? It'll really give us insight into whether we are a performance and achievement addict or not, because it's a sneaky one. It's a hard one to identify.
Zach, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. Um, as I was listening, I feel like I get the front seat to a real life venue when we do these shares and these different podcasts. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for just sharing your personal story. I have so much respect for you as a man, as we've done life together in our small group the last year and a half, and as we continue to do life together. And thank you again, Zach, for being our guest. Very much appreciate it.